Good morning. This meeting of the Senate Finance Committee for March 5th, 2026 will come to order. This is the first meeting we have this year, and we have some new kid on the block. I can't think of his Senator Johnson. Do you want to say anything, Senator Johnson? We welcome you to the committee.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the opportunity. It's funny being here for 10 years. It's humbling to be the new kid on the block still. So thank you for the opportunity. And if you haven't grabbed anything yet, the new kid is supposed to bring the treats. So we've got some treats on the back table over here.
We don't have a rule on that, but Senator Johnson did bring some stuff for committee members who haven't seen that. We also have, two new pages for this morning, Isaac Sparber and Cynthia Candela Gonzaga. If you want to introduce yourselves briefly, or at least pop your heads out, just so the committee knows who you are. If you want to say anything, you're welcome to it. So, okay. Well, we're glad you're here. And sergeants, we have sergeants for every meeting is present, and Greg Lewandowski is over here. If anybody needs anything, I want to make sure we all know he is going to be here for all of our hearings as well. And I think there are some common sense security guidelines that I think many of you have heard in other committees and so on. We have copies of them if anyone is interested. But basically, they're designed to make sure people don't disrupt the hearings, and we have orderly process, and we have the sergeants here. So if anybody needs more information, please contact me or staff. And today we have one bill on the agenda. It's Senate File 3596, Senate Report for one-time emergency rental assistance for counties and tribal governments. And welcome to the committee, Senator Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members. This bill before you provides $40 million in emergency rental assistance to Minnesotans through counties and tribal nations. This funding is a lifeline that Minnesotans urgently need in response to the federal government's effects on the economy. These $40 million are the remaining funds from the Tyler settlement, which exists because of a class action lawsuit led by Ms. Geraldine Tyler, a 94-year-old Minneapolis resident whose condo was wrongfully seized by the county after she fell behind on property taxes. As a result of the settlement, money was appropriated to cover claims made by other Minnesotans who, like Ms. Tyler, were simply struggling to afford their housing and were harmed by the government's unconstitutional actions. The deadline for which to file settlement claims has passed, and there will be money remaining in this account. It seems appropriate to ensure that those funds are used for a similar purpose, to help those struggling to afford their housing because of the unjust actions of the government. In recent months, organizations like the Greater Twin Cities United Way, Homeline, and Legal Aid have seen a 60 to 80% increase in calls from tenants who cannot pay their rent. They expect a significant jump in eviction filings starting this week. On top of that, counties have exhausted this quarter's allotment of rental assistance. We set an unfortunate record in 2025 for the most evictions filed in state history. And if we don't respond quickly to the federal government's destabilization of our economy over the past 6 months, we will break that record again this year. Cuts to federal food assistance and housing programs, rising costs of health insurance and groceries, and aggressive immigration operations that pushed Minnesota families to the edge all across our state. We have the tools to help families out of this growing crisis. Our state's existing emergency rental assistance programs are a tested way to support local communities, stop unneeded evictions, and prevent homelessness. And when we help tenants, we help property owners who depend on their rent for income. We help kids and elders who avoid the disruption and trauma of unstable housing, and we prevent the need for more costly interventions down the line. This legislation would provide a $40 million lifeboat as quickly as possible through tested programs to Minnesotans who need our help.
Thank you, Senator Port. I wonder if there are any questions for from the committee, or did you have any presenters from MHFA or anything?
I have them here if there are questions that need to be answered, okay. But not testimony.
Good. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You knew I'd have a question.
I didn't see your hand, however. I knew you'd have questions, but go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Port, I've noticed quite a few changes in this bill as it's gone through. It started at 50 million, it increased to 75 million. Now we're back down to 40 million. Can you tell me how have you determined? It feels a little bit scattershot.
Sure.
How do you determine how much is needed, and who's giving you those numbers?
Senator Port.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that question, Senator Pratt. When we started the session, the best estimate that we had from talking to counties was around 50 million. As we moved into session, we met with additional partners, including the Greater Twin Cities United Way, who runs the 211 hotline for folks to call in for help. And based on that data that they had, they shared that they expect the need over the next 3 months to be 75 million. Which is why we pushed it up to that, to really show that we need to fight for the need. As we moved through the process and through this year's budget forecast, we knew that this was existing money that doesn't change the forecast. It's 40 million, it's not enough, but it is a very solid bridge that can get us to the broader supplemental budget conversation as we move through session.
Senator Pratt, continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm just wondering if Mr. Nauman would be able to help me with this. The tax forfeited settlement, that was specifically to pay for or to reimburse people who had overpaid their property taxes. And now we seem to be taking that money to help, to want to help renters, and it doesn't feel like it's the right purpose for that settlement. Can you tell me how this is working, and 40 million seems like an awful lot to take out of that settlement when we've got property tax people who had overpaid property taxes that need to or tax forfeited, I should say, that are owed this money.
Mr. Chair and Senator Pratt, I'll do my best. This gets legal very quick, so what I will do is sort of outline in the briefest of terms what I'll refer to as the Tyler Law. That was Chapter 113 from 2024. This was enacted following some Supreme Court finding that effectively threw out Minnesota's law that the counties were complying with, that the state was complying with, that it was determined that Minnesota's approach of allowing the government to hold on to and receive essentially a profit from the tax forfeited lands constituted a taking. And that's about as far as I'm going to go into the legal side of things. I'll let others handle that part. The next step for the legislature was to determine our best estimate of what the contours of how much money needed to be set aside to essentially handle the claims, because there was a class established. The claims associated with individuals that fit that definition. We determined in the 2024 session that that amount was $109 million. It was the best guess. As we often do in this business, you're making a guess on a circumstance that you haven't encountered before. A variety of deadlines were established. County participation was determined. There are a lot of legal aspects of the Tyler Law. And some deadlines have passed, and now it has been portrayed to the Senate that the balance of the unneeded amount will be between $35 and $45 million. As we often do in the forecasting process, we pick the midpoint, and that $40 million is what is being, under the language of the bill of the third engrossment, is being brought back into the state treasury so that it may be canceled. And while I've got the microphone, Mr. Chair, and I know this isn't, Mr. Chair and Senator Pratt, I know this isn't the exact question, but if I can call your attention to section 2, it's a little bit of an unusual, on page 5 of the engrossment. Because the $109 million that I mentioned earlier was actually appropriated immediately and effectively in the state accounting system spent, it was sent directly to the court administrator, which was appointed to administer the claims. So the accounting system shows that all of it was spent. The administrator was tasked with the responsibility of settling the claims on behalf of the state. So the Attorney General's office has been in communication with the administrator, and we understand from communication with the Attorney General's office and MMB that there is between $35 and $45 million that should cancel back on, according to the Tyler law, or should be returned to the state rather, on June 30th, 2026. And that's in the original law. What this bill proposes to do is that require that the administrator return any, the lesser of $40 million or the amount that's not needed to settle outstanding claims. And the reason for that artful language is because we don't honestly have all the details yet, and there might be some additional settle up, but we're as confident as we can be at this point that it's between 35 and 45. So that artful language requires the administrator to bring that, give that money back to the commissioner of MMB, and then subdivision 2 effectively cancels it. I know that's way more than you asked, but I feel like that was maybe useful for the committee's jurisdiction.
Senator Pratt?
And thank you, Mr. Chair. And if those claims come in over those residual claims come in over 40 million, where does that additional money come from?
So, Mr. Chair and Senator Pratt, under the language, the assumption is that it would be the lesser of 40 million or the amount needed. If it were, the range that I gave you was up to 5 million more than that, the general fund would bankroll the difference.
Senator Jasinski?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Port. It's August 31st, I think, is the date. How was that date brought up? How did you just pick that date out of the air? Or what's the significance of August 31st?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Jasinski. That's when we started seeing an uptick in calls to Legal Aid, Twin Cities United Way, and Homeline about rental assistance. It's also when changes went into effect regarding SNAP, and people started having some more difficulty paying the rent as their SNAP benefits went down. We saw grocery prices begin to rise in the fall, increase through the winter. So the best data that we have from our rental partners, from our tenants' rights partners, is that September is when people started feeling a higher level of anxiety about evictions.
Senator Howe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and maybe staff can help me with this. Is this taking funds from a fund before it's actually canceled back to a general fund kind of unique? Is that setting a new precedent on, I guess I've never seen how they've done this before the actual account cancels back to the general fund and they grab it before we, I guess, can you explain how that works? Is that a normal procedure?
Mr. Chair and Senator Howe, the part of making a cancellation in advance of the usual cancellation date is not completely unusual. What's a little bit different in this circumstance is that the money is scored as already having left the state treasury. So there's language that actually brings the money back into the state treasury so that it can be canceled.
Further questions or Senator Drahan?
Thank you, Chair Marty, and thank you, Senator Port, for bringing the bill forward. In the COVID time period, we had a lot of discussion about rental assistance programs, and a lot of debate if payments should go to the renter or the landlord or the housing provider or the utility company or who should get it to make sure that we are getting the rents paid. What safeguards do you have it in this bill to make sure that we are making sure that whoever's providing the housing is getting paid to keep rents affordable, et cetera?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Draheim. We did talk a lot about that, and I think we learned a lot of lessons from the COVID era. What I want to be clear about is this is not a program like Rent Help MN was. It doesn't set up a whole new program. We don't have the money for that, frankly. If I had $600 million, we'd be having a different conversation. But this follows the current programs that we know that works, including FHPAP, local housing, local homeless prevention aid. It does go directly to the applicant, which in this case would be the renter, because setting up a whole new mechanism for landlords to apply is simply too onerous for this amount of money. It is something that I think we should consider how to figure out how to add into our normal programs, because I think you and I have learned that the quicker we can get the money to the end destination, the better. So I think that is something long-term that we should consider. But right now, this runs through the regular sort of FHPAP style programs. They do have to certify that they have paid the money, and the landlord could take them to court or evict them if they continue to not pay.
Senator Draheim.
Follow up, thank you, Chair. So what are we gonna do to ensure that fraud doesn't happen, that people get this money and then not pay their obligations or leave the state or whatever it is? You know, that's front and center across most Minnesotans' minds right now. So what safeguards have you embedded in this bill to try to minimize that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Senator Draheim. The funding distribution of this bill helps with that right from the start. It's well established and has the FHPAP program and emergency assistance have many safeguards already built in to prevent fraudulent activity, including recertification of the providers and things like that. Local homeless prevention aid is a tested way to support local communities. It's put out through the counties, so the counties do have some freedom to decide additional safeguards if they want. But I think also the legislature should not hold critical aid back because of a baseless fear of fraud. These programs have no evidence of any sort of significant fraud at all. They have never been called into question on this. They have significant reporting requirements. And I think, Minnesotans are telling us that they need help. I trust Minnesotans. I think they need help staying in their homes. We should provide the aid to stay to their homes. We have strong reporting requirements. We have built in additional eligibility requirements in this bill to narrow down the pool and be more specific. We allow counties to verify eligibility against WIC and SNAP and other benefits, so we know the people that we are approving here. But at the end of the day, these are trusted programs that work, and we should use them to get money out to Minnesotans as quickly as possible.
One
Senator
last,
Draheim,
thank
continue.
you. Under, in the bill, you have some language about the bill not counting towards income
Yes,
for the state of Minnesota, for the Department of Revenue.
sort of.
Yeah. So how do we think the federal government's gonna interpret that? Have you,
Yeah.
just explain that if you could.
I can
Thank
answer
you.
this question. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Draheim. It only doesn't count for income for the purposes of applying to a state welfare program. So if you're going to apply for SNAP or WIC or MA, this money doesn't count against your income to meet those income requirements. It still counts as income for tax purposes, both for Minnesota and the federal government.
Thank you.
Senator Porter, I had it's sort of related to Senator Draham's thing. So in the larger counties, it's the counties will likely administer themselves, and in the other ones, they use these, I can't remember the acronym, but they use those providers to distribute it.
That's right. In most of the metro counties, they have full staff that administer their FHPAP and emergency assistance programs on a regular basis. This bill allows them to use those same programs to move it through. Where there's a difference is primarily in greater Minnesota, where there's significantly less staff at the counties, and many of them contract with an HRA or another nonprofit to do their housing, all of their housing programs, including FHPAP. And this allows those folks to use those accredited providers. It does not allow them to use new unknown providers, but allows them to use their previously accredited providers to do that.
Thank you. Senator Pratt, did you have your hand up earlier, I think?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to follow up on some of what Senator Draheim was asking. So is this money's going directly to the counties? Will it be distributed by the counties, or will they be using some nonprofits to do that?
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, exactly as I just said to Senator Marty, in the metro, the FHPAP providers are the counties. In greater Minnesota, the counties don't have the capacity to do that, and so they have accredited providers, in some cases HRAs, in some cases existing nonprofits that do this work on a regular basis. The counties are allowed to use only those previously accredited providers, or they can administer it themselves. But the counties in greater Minnesota simply don't have the staff capacity to do these programs on a regular basis.
I'll just wait till the end, Senator Marty. Okay. Well, no, one more question. Thank you. How did you determine the amounts, particularly the tribal amounts, since they're all the same? I have a tribe in my district. I've not heard from them that they need this.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's the same for all tribes, but my sovereign nation hasn't reached out to me and said that this is important. How did you determine that everybody should get the same? It feels like it's just, again, a little scattershot and back of the envelope rather than really thoughtful trying to identify a need.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Pratt, this is an existing formula that we use for local housing, local homelessness prevention aid. So it's a formula that DOR uses currently to send out that local housing aid to all the counties and 11 tribes. This is the formula that they use to do it. It is an existing formula that's used every year, and DOR can get it out quickly because they already have the math and have a proven quick way to get it out to all of the counties.
Thank you.
And I will say, from the United Way information that we have, rental assistance needs are not limited to the metro. We have an uptick in needs from all across the state, including our tribal nations, but in a majority of the 87 counties, we are hearing the same risk of evictions. And what greater Minnesota doesn't have is really an existing shelter structure. So if we would have an eviction crisis in greater Minnesota, it would be far more dangerous because there's not an existing shelter structure.
Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Port, if this looks to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, it looks to me if they've started to have financial hardship after August 31st of 2025, so that would be September. And we're now already in March. Having been a landlord in my previous experience of being a landlord, they would already be evicted. So, I mean, we're not helping them stay in housing. They've already been evicted if they've been in financial hardship for one reason or another since then. So where does So they get to use that money on whatever they care to, or how does that work? And how many months do they get it all the way from September, all the way back to September? And how do they prove that if they never paid rent for that period of time?
Mr. Chair.
Senator Port.
Senator Howe, just because they started experiencing hardship in September doesn't mean they haven't paid their rent for 6 months. I think many of us have had hardships come to our families where health insurance costs or whatever the reason may be, your hours go down. It can span lots of reasons. If you're a farmer and suddenly your entire soybean market is gone, that is a hardship. It doesn't mean that they stopped paying rent. It maybe means they've gotten themselves in some trouble. Maybe they're paying rent with a credit card. Maybe they are not buying groceries because they need groceries. Maybe they've made it this far but haven't been able to, haven't been evicted yet. They've been working with their landlord. We're having discussions with landlords all across the state who are making incredible commitments to their communities and their tenants by keeping people housed, perhaps lowering rent or allowing more time. Their financial hardship had to have started sometime in this period, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're 6 months behind on rent. And in the bill, it lays out they can get up to 2 months of prospective rent. They can get up to 2 months of prospective utilities. They can have rent arrears that are occurring after August 31st, but that doesn't mean they haven't paid any rent since then. I assume someone who hasn't paid rent for 6 months would have been evicted. But there are many, many, many Minnesotans who are just barely hanging on.
Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for a follow-up. Thank you for that answer, Senator Port. But I still, that leads me to believe that if I can just claim that I'm short on my bank account, short for one reason or another, maybe I bought something that I probably shouldn't have, subscribed to something that I shouldn't have, I can obligate myself into financial hardship. So I'm a little bit concerned that as much as we put into concern about making sure that this money doesn't go in a bad direction, as you just described it, it actually heightens my concern that this probably could end up in places where we're not actually, we're buying subscriptions, we're buying TVs, we're buying whatever, because you can spend yourself into hardship, and I guess I've got concerns that this may not be as tightly monitored as you may describe. So that's my concern. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead, Senator Port.
We are hearing about people who have not eaten for days because their food only stretches far enough to feed their children. We're hearing about them not paying utilities because they can't afford electricity. We're hearing about them stretching every single dollar to try to keep up with the cost of increasing healthcare, the cost of higher groceries, the very high rent we have here in Minnesota. Minnesotans are telling us that they are hurting and that they need this. I don't believe Minnesotans as a whole take advantage of our programs. I think that we have a responsibility as a state to step up when we know that our communities are struggling, and that is what this bill is intended to do.
What I have on, Senator Howe, one more, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for one more question. I guess for our past experience here in the last few, I think it's troublesome to say that all Minnesotans have been honest and forthcoming with the problems that this state has faced. The other piece that I have an issue with is that if people are having problems with their feeding their children in this state, there's many programs out there, but we should then address how we're distributing SNAP and maybe making some adjustments there if that's the issue. But we shouldn't just start trying to fix everybody's issue with handing out dollars. We should fix those programs that are already in place and designed to help these people, rather than let's do something different. So that's my final comment. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Port.
Senator Port?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, there's a young woman who lives in my district who is on SNAP. At the beginning of August, she was getting $212 a month. Partway through September, as the reductions came in, that switched down to $114 a month. And then as new cuts came in, because she picked up extra hours at work in order to be able to supplement that $100 that she lost, her benefit is now down to $12 a month. That's not enough to feed people. She makes far below the poverty line. She qualifies for programs that should help people. And I agree, when we have programs intended to help people, we should make sure that they do. These are trusted programs that do not have a history of fraud. They have intense qualifications, including income limits, requiring eligibility and certification through the counties. There is no evidence of fraud in these programs, and to hold up our action here at the Senate when we know we have a crisis that we can do something to solve. In this case, with $40 million, we should take that opportunity.
I have a lot of members who signed up recently. I want to make sure I have everyone. I have Senator Mohammed, Senator Johnson, Senator Murphy, Pappas, Friends, and Draheim, and Jasinski. So Senator Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Port, thank you for bringing this forward. My question is on the eviction crisis of our state. We know that last year there were around 25,000 people that filed for evictions. Do you have any idea of what that number looks like since Metro Search?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Mohammed. We know it's already over 1,000 of the numbers of evictions filed. That 2,500 number felt insane last year, and now we're well on our way to beating it.
Senator Mohammed.
I know 2 years ago, maybe you did a rental assistance bill as well. Do you know if there's any money left in the funding that you gave to counties to do that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Marty, the money that's been allocated out to counties, they do on a quarterly basis. The next quarter has already been released and it's already gone.
Thank you. You know, I appreciate you for bringing this forward, and I know my neighbors certainly appreciate you for bringing this forward. I hear this from my community, and have been hearing it since since August. We have seen Minnesotans empty their pockets, feed people, house people, delay what could still become the worst, the worst eviction crisis of our state. And we know that Minnesotans have raised millions of dollars to take care of their neighbors in mutual aid. And I think this is one step forward to help those folks. I don't think $40 million is enough to get us out of the crisis that we're in, but I'm grateful that you brought this forward and we're doing our part.
Thank you, Senator Mohammed.
Thank you. Senator Johnson, then Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Port, first of all, thank you for bringing the bill forward to understand the heart behind the bill itself, and I think that is admirable on that one. One of the issues that perhaps I see on this particular bill itself is that I think the reason why you're giving for this is the federal administration has made some adjustments and cuts, in particular to the state of Minnesota. And one of the reasons why that has happened is because Minnesota has failed to provide programs that are effective in really getting the money out to the people that they intend to do. We've heard a little bit about the fraud and the concerns about that. I think we all know that that's been a big talking point, not only in the state of Minnesota, but also nationally. And that's something that we are all concerned about on that. So a couple of the things that were referenced here that you said earlier was the quicker we can get this money out, the better. There's baseless fear that this is going to fraud, and we have to trust Minnesotans. I think those are the things that I'm concerned about, because that seems to be covering up some of the safeguards that we should be talking about in this bill in particular that I don't see. I understand you had said initially that this would be going through similar processes to what other money has done. I think in particular the Housing Stabilization Fund that was found out to be 90% fraudulent.
That's actually not a housing fund.
I get that, but it's all wrapped up in those programs that provide assistance for those programs. You also said that this is going to be going through the same mechanisms as some of the other money that has been going out. However, when you read on 2.26, and I'll just quote this off here. It says, emergency rental assistance under this section may be administered through the same entities allowed to administer family homelessness prevention and assistance projects or programs under Minnesota statutes on and on. So it's not required to go through the same process. So this again is open to interpretation. Again, it's open to different routes of going through the money on that one. And so I'm concerned about the fraud aspect on that one. The other thing that you said is that you trust Minnesotans and that Minnesotans need this assistance. So could you tell me, Senator Port, is this going to legal Minnesotans only? And what's our safeguard to make sure that that happens?
Mr. Chair, let me answer the first part of your question first. The may part in that is because the rest of the bill requires it goes out through counties. This allows those counties to use that FHPAP partner if they choose. If they don't choose that, they have to administer it themselves. So it's the counties or that. They have the choice for those greater Minnesota counties who don't have the capacity to run the program themselves. I also want to add that I was corrected on the rental assistance portion of it. That does go directly to the landlord, to the property owner. Through the FHPAP guidelines. So it doesn't go to the person. They apply, but the money goes directly to the landlord to reach that. I'm sorry, what was the second question?
Mr. Chair, Senator Port, second question was you said that this is intended to help out Minnesotans. So I want to know, is this going to be going to legally established Minnesotans here in the state of Minnesota?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Johnson, it does require that they be Minnesotans for at least, I think it's 2 months prior to that. So they have to have established residency here in order to qualify for these programs.
Mr. Chair, Senator Port, I guess I don't understand what that means legally. Could you kind of walk me through what does it mean to establish 2 months of residency here?
Sure. You have to have an address in Minnesota for at least 2 months where you live, just like we establish residency for, lots of other things, like we establish residency as candidates in our districts.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Johnson.
So does that mean that illegal immigrants that come here and live here for 2 months and establish residency are now eligible for these programs?
I guess, Mr. Chair, if I may, can I have you clarify what you mean by illegal?
Mr. Chair.
Senator Johnson.
Senator Port, not following the legal immigration process in the state of Minnesota.
Senator Port.
So there are many legal immigration processes in the state of Minnesota. There are work permits, there are refugee status, there are green card holders, there are a number of other avenues that people can be going through in a process to become citizens. That's not the only way to be legal in Minnesota. We have lots of green card holders and refugees who aren't citizens yet, but are very much here legally, have documentation. And I think it's also important to remember that our immigration process takes a very long time. And sometimes people who are working through that process are working for 5 or even 10 years to become fully citizens. That doesn't mean they're not here legally. They have documentation to be here legally. I think it's also important to point out that when this bill came up in housing, just 2 weeks before that, Haitian immigrants had refugee status here in the United States. 2 days before my hearing in housing, the president announced via tweet that he was taking away that status and those people no longer had lawful status. So if people who have gone through the process, who have applied for asylum, who have been granted asylum, who have been living in our communities for months, years, decades, can one day have that stripped away by a tweet, then I don't think we have a process that anyone can claim is legal or normal or useful, or that anyone can follow the process. If the president can decide via tweet that a group of people are no longer citizens, no longer protected status, then I don't know what you mean by legal status, because I have no idea what this president means by legal status.
Mr. Chair, and just finally, I want to say, so most of the examples that you gave, almost all of them, were folks who were here at a legal status situation. And so that's great. And those are the people that we are, happy to help out and do that work with. You've given some small examples of situation that I'm not aware of on that as well, too. So just want to make sure that we know exactly where that money is going, so we're not committing fraud that we've seen over and over again. So thank you for your answers today.
Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Senator Port. Thank you for bringing the proposal forward. I really appreciated your opening statement. I appreciated you paying tribute to Ms. Tyler. And a reminder that the injury that occurred that we then rectified was an injury brought by our own government, counties and state, because we refused to change the law. And she didn't accept that and went to court, which I admire and will always admire the willfulness of people to fight for what they believe is just and right. And she got relief for a lot of people. And I feel like in America right now, and certainly in Minnesota, we're at that precipice again about how we're going to lead and live and represent the best of who we are as Minnesotans. And there is a choice in that. There's an absolute choice in that. So I wanted to thank you for that frame of reference. One of the things I have been thinking about as we've been listening to this, and you touched on it briefly, is just the cost of things for people. And today we're talking about rental assistance, and I think there are a lot of contributors to the crisis that people are feeling around eviction. Certainly Metro Surge has heightened that for a lot of people who live in our state. But we also know that basics for people, things like housing and energy costs, utilities, healthcare, food support, are all becoming much more expensive for people. Groceries, now gas because of a new war in the Middle East. Minnesotans are really struggling with the cost of things. And I think it is important to recall or to call to mind that many of the reasons that people are struggling with the cost of things is because of actions by our own federal government. And in this moment, I am talking about H.R. 1. And we are going to see over months and years cascading, escalating costs for people, particularly around healthcare, a basic human need. And I'm just wondering if you could shed a little more light on those costs and the issue of what things are costing for people, and contextualize that when we think about this proposal. Because you are proposing that we not just think about the months of Metro Surge, but going back in time, and you mentioned it tied to some of the actions that happened this summer. So if you could just elaborate that for me a little bit, I'd be grateful.
Yeah, thank you, Leader Murphy, Mr. Chair. We started tracking this as soon as H.R. 1 passed, and I knew any rising costs have an effect on housing, which is, I'm the chair, I worry about that a lot. And we know that Minnesotans are stretched thin right now. The cost of housing is incredibly high in Minnesota and is becoming out of reach for far too many. Over 60% of Minnesotans are cost burdened, which means they're paying more than 30% of their income on just their housing. So when you see those other costs go up, it really begins to put a pinch very quickly. We saw, the SNAP changes went into effect first, and we saw decreases in the amounts people were getting, and then additional requirements on them, and then an additional shrink on the amount that we were getting. Talking to food banks across the state of Minnesota, they are not meeting the need. They are stretched to the absolute limit. They're doing everything they can, but food shelves across Minnesota are running empty at the end of the week. We are seeing, towards the end of the year, as healthcare prices, health insurance prices came out, we saw another uptick in calls for rental assistance because people's healthcare choices, their options for insurance, went up between 80% and in some cases 200%. And they didn't know how they were going to do that. So some people are trying to squeeze it all in together, which puts that pressure on that housing cost again. Some people chose to forego insurance, which we know makes any injury now a potential bankruptcy. And that pressure exists on them. In greater Minnesota, we really saw a lot of impact to farmers, with the soybean market in particular, but tariffs in general causing a lot of instability in the market. And then they got hit by insurance. So what we're hearing is certainly concern about loss of farms, though that's not obviously covered in this bill. But we're also hearing that their kids that maybe live in town and come help them are feeling that pinch too, because they don't have the money to employ as many people on their farms. It is not one single thing that brought us to an eviction crisis. It is a combination of policy choices that have stretched Minnesotans so thin that they, are struggling. Certainly the Metro surge, the impact of ICE agents here in the Metro and now across Minnesota has had a significant impact as well. And we know that the fear and terror that exists in our communities is very real and devastating for those communities. And for many, it has meant a loss of income. I have several developers, contractors that I work with on a regular basis in housing who have stopped their production for the moment because they don't have staff or it's dangerous for their staff to be there. These are houses that aren't getting built, which continues to exacerbate our housing crisis and drive up prices more. So, this bill isn't an answer for all of those things. But I think it's important that we see that all of those things have contributed to the need for this bill, and that we have big policy decisions in front of all of us this session, right? We have to figure out how we're going to respond to lots of these different policy things. I look forward to those discussions, and I think, hopefully partnership that we can figure out how to work best for Minnesotans. But I will say this bill we can do right now without an impact on the bottom line through safe and trusted programs that will help people stay stably housed. And we know that that is just a huge indicator for the ability to weather all the other storms and to be successful in this state. And so that is the reason for this bill.
Senator Draheim and then Senator Pappas. Senator Pappas, Senator Draheim, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Marty, and thank you, Senator Port, again for the discussion. We were talking a little bit about the May word on 2.26 a little bit. And if a county chooses, because they may use existing partners, if they choose not to use an existing partner, is there any language in here that would prohibit another partner for taking an administrative expense to run the program?
Senator Draheim, I might go to council for this. My understanding of the bill is it's sent directly to the counties, and this is the only option they have to not do it themselves. But if there is sort of boots and suspenders language we can put up to make sure it's either the counties or their FHPAP providers, I'd be happy to take that.
Chair?
Senator Draheim.
Thank you. You know, I think every county is a little different, especially in the rural area, like you
Yeah.
pointed out. I just want to make sure if we're going to do this, that it goes to what the intent of the bill is.
I agree.
So if our great nonpartisan staff could work on an amendment to tighten that up, I would feel better having that language in there. And if I could continue, Chair?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. The discussion on the healthcare, as most people know, I drop a lot of bills, and a lot of them are on healthcare. So I appreciate the discussion on there, and healthcare costs are through the roof. And you know, we had last January when we came in, you know, Blue Cross Blue Shield came into my office and said, "Hey, we're going to probably end up raising our rates 10 to 30%." And obviously, rates went up. That's not where I'm going here. But we also had a lot of news here this winter with Hennepin County Medical Center. And that is, it's, I don't want to call it the shining star of our healthcare system, but it is the most used system for emergencies and burns, et cetera. And we can't lose that, in my opinion, for the state. And I've always had the notion, and Senator Pappas knows this, whenever we talk bonding, I always say, well, we have to prioritize what we're gonna spend money on. And, you know, when you look at your whole bill, I appreciate the concept and what you're trying to do and who you're trying to help. But we're going back to last fall, going forward. It's kind of past the usefulness, in my opinion, to really be a relief for most people. I would rather see this be used for Hennepin County Medical Center than this program. And hoping that we already have enough other housing programs to fill in the gap, you know, through unemployment insurance. You got the paid family medical leave. You got a whole bunch of housing things. You know, we talked about the SNAP, and you had one story that really didn't help there, but we have a lot of food programs, even in my area. Even the little town where my kids go to school has a food shop. And so there are options out there. I'm not saying they're perfect. But to me, instead of starting a new program, we should focus on the programs we have. And I would rather spend the now $40 million trying to help out Hennepin County Medical Center than I would be to do this. So I just think as we move forward, and I'm sure this is probably gonna end up on the floor pretty quick, but is this really the top priority that we have to drop everything? We don't even have our targets yet, as far as I know, for your committee or any other committee. And we're gonna rush out money through kind of a Ponzi scheme with another account, in my opinion, to fund it. You know, and if we're gonna do something like that, to me, the highest priority would be Hennepin County Medical Center. So I just wanted to get that out on the record. Thank you.
Senator Port.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Draheim. I'm going to set aside the comment about a Ponzi scheme. This is very clear, real money that exists, and we will use to help keep Minnesotans in their homes. And what I know is that we are expecting a huge flood of evictions this month and next month, and that our communities have been stepping up with millions of dollars in mutual aid, millions of dollars, that teachers and plumbers and, you know, bus drivers are pulling together to keep their neighbors housed. It's been an incredible display of solidarity and care for your neighbors from Minnesotans over the course of these last few months. I will say this is my bill, but I can't take credit for this idea. This is the people of Minnesota. They are reaching out and telling all of our community providers that they need help, that this is the #1 need. They are calling their legislators. I'm getting tons of calls about this, probably because I'm the housing chair, but this is a need that the people of Minnesota have said is a high priority. And we also know that once someone loses their home, they become not only far less successful in their ability to earn money or succeed in an education status, they have worse health outcomes. And if the human cost isn't enough, it costs the state so much more money. All of those programs to lift people out of homelessness are significantly less effective, dollar for dollar, than keeping people stable in their homes in the first place. So I am trying to find the most effective tool to keep people stably housed while we, as a body, figure out the answers to all the rest of that stuff, because I agree with you, Senator Drahan, we cannot lose HCMC. We have to figure that answer out. This bill is to help keep people stable while we move through our budgeting process, and it is revenue neutral to the bottom line.
Senator Drahan.
And thank you, and I wasn't, the Ponzi scheme is, it's not an unusual funding mechanism that you're using. I give you an A for creativity on that. But when we look at evictions from 24 to 25 were almost identical. They're like 150 different. So last year in 25, as of this report, there was 23,391 evictions filed, and the previous year, 23,282. So a little over 100 different. So pretty consistent. So in my area, you know, we haven't been as affected as you are. I am not hearing this in my 7 counties from the people in my district. So just FYI, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to mention that my synagogue, which is not that huge a synagogue, recently raised $1 million in assistance for, and they, in round 5, which was $270,000, they helped 190 families. 95% of that was for rent requests. So I agree with you, Senator Port. The need is really to help with rent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Port. So prior to coming into session, obviously a month ago, I met with all my counties. I went to Rice County, Steele County, Goodhue County, and Waseca County, and we had meetings, and, you know, here's the concerns, and we went through huge concerns on paid family leave, what it was doing to their budgets, county-based purchasing, there were some tweaks they needed that, the SSIS software update they all need because it's antiquated. They talked about unfunded mandates, cost shifts to counties, all those things, and then this is just nothing I heard of. So is this coming from some some point in the state that's different, or is it you're hearing it statewide? Because I didn't, you know, I met with all 4 counties. We went through everything. Not once did this issue come up with them. So where is it coming from? Where is it more focused at? Who are you hearing it from? If you could please comment on that.
Mr. Chair, Senator Jasinski, we are hearing it statewide. Requests for rental assistance to all counties are up. It is worse in the metro, though not limited to the metro. We're hearing huge numbers in Worthington, in Wilmer, in St. Cloud, in Duluth, in Rochester. We are beginning, and it's beginning to spread more widely. So I think there was certainly a targeted moment at the beginning of this year that was where the crisis was very critical in Minneapolis, and a lot of people stepped up to help with that. But what we're seeing now is that this is spread far and wide, and that the normal programs that we have to address these things are already oversubscribed across counties. And I have a list of each of the counties. I'm happy to figure out which counties you represent and what share they would get. But it is becoming a statewide need.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Port. I have the runs. We saw the runs, so I saw what the counties are getting. It's just, again, this is something that I haven't heard of at all. When I met with my counties before coming into session, there was no priority on this, and I didn't hear anything about it, so I was just asking where from.
I believe that Senate Council is ready with some language for Senator Draheim's concern. Ms. Stengel, you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Senator Draheim, and members. The amendment would be on page 3 of the bill. After line 9, it would be to insert a new paragraph E, and that would read, counties, tribal governments, and entities that administer the program may not retain any portion of the funds received for administrative costs. And I can repeat that. That's on page 3, after line 9. Insert a new paragraph E that says counties, tribal governments, and entities that administer the program may not retain any portion of the funds received for administrative costs.
Senator Draheim.
Thank you. The intent of this, members, is to address under 2.6 where it says may, if they would use another entity that might take an administration cost. I just want to make sure if we're going to do it, let's make sure all the money that we're gonna, the 40 million in this version here, goes to the people we're trying to help and doesn't get siphoned off by a group. And I hope that's okay with the author. I try to be a friendly amendment here, so thank you.
Senator Port.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Draheim. I'm happy to take it today, and you and I can touch base afterwards if the counties have any concerns about the language, but yes.
Senator Draheim moves the oral amendment to add a paragraph E on after line 3.9, and Senate Council, could you read his language again?
Yes, Mr. Chair. On page 3, after line 9, insert a new paragraph E. Counties, tribal governments, and entities that administer the program may not retain any portion of the funds received for administrative costs.
On that motion, any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Further discussion, Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Port, for bringing this forward. I want to respond just briefly to some comments. I think Senator Howe and you can both be right. We're trying to help people that need help. And Senator Howe, I hear you. It's not those families that are doing their best that we want to avoid. It's the small percentage of Minnesotans who have just demonstrated for us in various ways that we can't trust them. And Senator Howe, I think you raise a good point about incentivization. If we're going to be responsible for sending money, we want them to be responsible with how they spend it. Senator Port, I see a path for not only you both to be right, but for this bill to pass. As a member of the rural delegation, I got to agree with Senator Jasinski. I met with my counties. If they knew there was 40 million, they did not mention it, and they did not identify this as a priority when compared to other things that counties are doing. So I hope as the Finance Committee, we see our responsibility to ask how much money have we got and what are we going to do with it. I'll be a yes vote on your bill today, but to those members who are saying, what is the story about the amount of money we can spend and where do we want to spend it? I think that's a larger discussion. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I'd like to be wrapping up. Can people let me know how many more want to make comments or whatever? Senator Pratt, I'm sure, and Senator Port will obviously have. Anybody else? If not, Senator Pratt.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And you know, the problem with going last is sometimes everything's already been said, but Mr. Chair, you know, it's a little confusing why we're in this position, right? If the idea is to blame HR 1, then I think we have to look at the populations that are most impacted by HR 1, and those are able-bodied adults who need to meet a work requirement. And we've talked and heard throughout the interim that a number of those people that are on the program through that classification may actually be disabled and be able to qualify as disabled and not lose those benefits, and those without legal status. If we're talking about Metro Surge, then I've got to look at the timeline and say 4 months to get the funds out seems like an awful long time, because this, quite honest, let's just be realistic. This probably won't, if it were to pass, it probably wouldn't be effective until April at the earliest, which means that we are now distributing funds through the end of August. And then those funds won't be canceled back to the general fund until November, end of November, beginning of December, and we don't have any reporting on that. I'm glad to hear that the money will be going to landlords, because, I'm reminded of the story I saw not too long ago at Care 11 and AJ Legault about Sky Hansen, who made her rent payments and was defrauded and evicted. We are in this position, Mr. Chair, because of the extraordinary fraud experienced by this state. It seems like every few weeks there's a new scheme that we didn't anticipate. Senator Porter said this program hasn't experienced any fraud. We don't know that yet, because it comes up slowly and incrementally, time over time over time. And as we've raised the concern about being able to use some of these nonprofits to distribute the funds, it's those very nonprofits that have been stealing the funds from us in many cases, especially when they haven't been vetted. And when we talk about the word may, we know that there can be some new organizations that maybe haven't been fully vetted. And Senator Draheim highlighted the fact that we've got numerous programs already in place to serve this, and we have many, many other needs. Mr. Chair, we still have a $3 billion structural deficit looming out there. And I appreciate the comments by the rural members on the caucus, but as a Metro member, I have not heard this as a priority from my county. I've not heard it as a priority from my tribe. And so it feels like we're trying to create a problem and solve it. And I'm not saying that there aren't people in need, more for political needs than financial needs. So, Mr. Chair, as we watch this bill jump around, as we've watched this bill extend the timelines, as we watch that it takes 3 months to cancel back unused funds, it should be 30 days. Tells me that this is ripe for abuse. It's ripe for abuse. And so, Mr. Chair, I encourage members to vote against this bill. We need to send it back. We need to keep working on it, because we can't land on a number. We can't land on, we're just, as I said before, it feels like a scattershot approach to try to get something through quickly. Thank you.
Senator Port, final comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members. Minnesotans are having trouble affording their lives for all sorts of reasons and all sorts of aspects of their lives. Housing is the bedrock from which success grows. You cannot, your outcomes are not as hopeful, your opportunity not as great when you do not have a stable home. We want Minnesotans to succeed. I want Minnesotans to succeed. I want them to have jobs that they can work with honor, that pay for their families, to be able to put gas in their car and food on their table and experience a full and joyful life in Minnesota. That's a challenge for people right now. We're hearing it because of all sorts of different reasons, from healthcare to entitlement benefits that have shrunk or disappeared, to tariffs, to general affordability, and now, as Senator Murphy pointed out, we're at war too. What we can do is we can answer the response for people to keep them in a stable house. Giving them a place to sleep at the end of the night, making sure that they stay there while we as a state work together to decide our budget for this year and how we're going to respond to a wide variety of crises. I don't have answers for those today, but what I do have an answer for is for the Minnesotans who say, I can't afford my rent and I'm going to lose my house. We can help them today, and I ask for your yes vote.
Thank you, Senator Port. Senator Mohammed, want to move? Senator Mohammed moves Senate File 3596 as amended be recommended to pass. Is there further discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion prevails. With that, I want to say thanks, and in addition to all of our standard help from Senate Council Research Fiscal Analysis, Megan Bursch, I know, had many long hours trying to work on the tax portions of this, and I appreciate that, and all of you. With that, next week we are planning on Wednesday to hear a presentation on the February forecast from MMB. We might meet on Tuesday or Thursday as well for bills. We'll send out schedules as soon as we have more information. And with that, this committee is in adjournment.